everyone. I am Kelly Wolf, back with the Embodying Faith series here on the Let It Matter blog. I'm so excited today. We're going to be talking about engaging God through our senses. So embodiment is not just necessarily like a physical movement, and it's not just awareness. It's actually, it's sort of all of those pieces and a whole lot more. So I'm very excited to have Jennie Altstadt, my spiritual director and friend. I was thinking about this. I didn't used to like it when people would say she's good people. Like I was like, that's not good grammar, But Jennie is 9 of the best people. So it's fitting. And Jennie, if you want to introduce yourself, tell us, where you're at and your family, and then if you would sort of include your journey into becoming a spiritual director, things like embodiment and contemplative practices that I know are important to you, Enneagram maybe, sort of however you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Kelly. Thanks for the chance to be with you. My husband and I just relocated from the Kansas City area to a suburb in Phoenix. That took up our summer, so we're still kind of settling in here and getting used to the fact that it's November and I don't need a sweater, and that's kind of a new thing. My journey to spiritual direction began in 2015 when I was introduced to the concept, hadn't heard of it, but had the opportunity to attend an informational session about becoming trained as a spiritual director, which really resonated with me. I did 2 years of training. My husband is now in his 2nd year of training. He will be finished in May.
Good for him.
I've had the chance to offer direction and just love how it has opened up new ways to experience God in my life, and getting to journey with people as they do that. Through some of the books that I read when I was training, practices that were brought to my attention by directors that I've met with, it just really sort of did a deeper dive into the contemplative world, contemplative practices, how to broaden my own understanding of what meeting with God in prayer was about. Because I think sometimes we're obviously formed by how we grew up. And sometimes those formational experiences sort of box us in when it comes to prayer.
Yes.
And and to find these opportunities of other ways of engaging with God, it's been a real joy. Yeah.
And it's so up your alley. I'm shocked to hear that it was 2015 when you started. It seems like it's in your bones. And that's not to say it's not, just because it's, maybe newer than I knew, but it's, people may be wondering, how in the world do I have a spiritual director that's in Kansas and in Arizona? The weirdest thing. I had seen someone talking on Twitter, I think, about the benefits of spiritual direction. Like you, I had never even heard of it. Neither of us really grew up in either contemplative or or high church liturgical, sacramental kind of theology. So I wasn't aware of, I heard like accountability partners. That was the closest I had heard of. And I wasn't really interested in that, frankly. Yeah. But once I heard more about what it is and that you bear witness to my journey with God, but also, you do so much more than bear witness. You ask the questions that, like, right in the moment. I always tell people this every time we have a session, like, it may be 50 minutes in and the thing hasn't happened yet, but always by the end, something has happened, whether it's some just sort of download from God that I feel like gave me clarity, or some language to put around a season that I didn't know how to describe or felt like was wrong with me, and turns out, no, that's, and sometimes it comes from you, sometimes it comes from the space we make that's just sort of an internal, guys, not the audible voice of God, I'm not crazy, but just those sort of knowings that come up from your, and then sometimes it is myself, it's just a clarity of myself and my faith. And you've helped me walk through deconstruction of a faith that we actually, you know, I came from an evangelical background into a more liturgical and progressive sort of Christianity, and that was such an interesting, it was an interesting journey for me. It was unexpected. I didn't go looking for it. I wasn't asking for it. It was scary, and you really helped me define some things, give myself the time to not rush into those things, know where I was convicted and where I have no idea, you know, where there's tons of room for mystery. And so anyway, this is not a commercial for spiritual direction, although Jenny's great. The point is, I had searched out at that time evangelical spiritual directors. And I don't remember the name of the organization, but I found some website basically had a database of spiritual directors, and you could do it through Skype. And so we first started meeting through Skype, and I'll tell you guys my favorite thing that ever happened. I don't know, it was probably 2 years into us meeting, and all of a sudden you said something like, well, I'm also certified or trained in trauma-informed yoga. So if you want, you know, let's get out a mat.
Yeah.
And I can help you like sort of process some of this in your body. And I was stunned. There was even a season where I was like, I don't know if spiritual direction is right now. I feel so overwhelmed by the idea. But you know, we still met on Skype for yoga practices, and you've just always been so gentle with my body and my spirit, but also therapeutic for it. And I think a director is a good word. Very spiritually mothering, and I just adore you. So
Thank you for that.
anyway, guys, that's why I chose Jenny, because she has been so instrumental in my life, helping me to, even before I was part of a sacramental theology and way of thinking, very much the contemplative practices are that, right? They're like, they're ways to have some type of physicality, either that symbolizes a spiritual reality or that helps to keep the mind from wandering because you're physically doing something, or that stirs your affections up for God or something like that. So let's talk, Jenny, if you want to jump in. We have 5 senses that we, you know, that we talk about, and then we'll talk about each of those, and then we'll also talk about body position and positioning. So we'll go through all that. If you want to just start us off maybe with sight,
Sure.
what are some ways we can engage God with our senses through sight?
Sure. I think part of what we're talking about here, Kelly, is just creating ritual, creating meaning, and ritual not being a heavy duty word, but a sense, to me, it's the thing that makes a difference between a routine and something that's special, is making it ritual. And a lot of times that can be as simple as lighting a candle. I have a candle that's lit right here.
What?
Yeah, you do too. So something for me to notice. Other things, if you are outside and you're walking in nature, nature is so full of things that draw us into God's presence and make us aware that He's there. We can see these things. We can use artwork. I have a Celtic cross that is done in calligraphy. Yeah, which is it's just a symbol, and it's a place for me to stop when I come in to pray, or I want to be in God's presence to spend time with Him. It's something to stop and look at and just sort of take a moment to be centered, to be able to think about those things. So inside your house, outside your house.
You're exactly right. I think we think of nature like if we see a stunning sunset or sunrise, or if like a really monstrous sort of thundercloud or something out of the ordinary, but it doesn't have to. I mean, really just nature is so extraordinary. Anyway, I was gonna show also, I got this print. It's from a girl who does, it's called Modern Saints by Gracie. So she paints saints, the saints, but in ways that, like, you know, some of them have a nose ring and some of them have, like, you know, wavy curly, like as if they were today, to sort of destatuize them. Anyway, this is a print called Our Lady of Peace. And I not being a Catholic, being an unapologetic Protestant, I actually use this print more as to meditate on the motherly aspects of God rather than on Mary. But I wanted to show, whoops.
Oh, beautiful.
That
Yeah.
is just the look on her face. I can't do the camera. The look on her face and the child in her breast, and the floral and the white and the light, and it's just the blue for some reason is so drawing. And then I got this when we were worshiping at home, this of the Eucharist that is sort of, I mean, it's abstract. If you get close to it, it doesn't have a lot of definition to it, but you can certainly tell, what it is. And it,
Sure.
It's there's a process for this, right? It's called, what's it called?
Visio Divina.
Visio Divina.
Sacred scene. Yeah, sacred site. Yeah. Since we've moved to Arizona, we have a completely different landscape around us. And finding the beauty in that difference, finding the beauty in the desert is an experience all of its own too, to sit with this place that first glance seems barren, but when you stop and you really start to look, there are these beautiful tiny wildflowers. All of the rocks are variations on the colors, the greens of the leaves of the plants, all these little things. When we take the time to stop and notice, just explode with the creativity of who God is and how he created our world to be.
Finding the beauty in the desert could be,
yeah.
I mean, the the symbolism there is just
exactly
explodes. But yeah, that's really beautiful. So so we and really what that does I guess to bring it back to sort of the centrality of engaging God. So your Celtic cross, there's something in your spirit, right, that clicks when you see it, or that comes awake when you see that, or when you not just glance at it, but when you meditate on it. And the same thing happens when I see a print like that Our Lady of Peace, or this one of the Eucharist, that already the idea of God as a mother, already the table of Jesus does something with the spirit. To have a visual representation of it, then to keep my mind from getting distracted, to use my eyes, my sight, is just one way of engaging, of using our sight, using our eyes to engage God. So moving, sorry, show me your.
No, yeah, just even sometimes it's the colors, sometimes it's the shape, sometimes it's the fact that God gifted someone with the ability to do this. God, our world could be completely gray with no color at all, but yet we serve a God who believes that colors are valuable and they are important to us, and beauty is important. And just for me to stop and reflect on that.
One of the things, this is kind of off topic, but one of the things sometimes when I'm doing a gratitude practice, it's real tough to find things.
Yeah. Sure.
As I think about, like, there's things that we think are givens that didn't have to be. So I'm like, what if we didn't have a big expanse of a sky? What if the ceiling was low and we all had to duck everywhere we went?
Exactly.
What if we had no flavors and textures? What if we ate bland paste and we were sustained and we didn't know any different?
Yes.
And it was fine, but we get this instead. What if we didn't know the smell of after rain, or hearing a baby laugh or something like that? What if it was like, I told my mom, what if instead of a beautiful blue sky, what if it was like scenes of like atrocities that all we had to do all the time was just watch something horrible? Like, using your imagination to engage gratitude for like God's creativity, God's creation, and then God's person. Also, that one of the things that I noticed looking at that cross is the diversity. So a Celtic cross is, and the calligraphy on it, I think of the globalness of the church, the eras and millennia and continents, and the bigness of what God is doing throughout the earth. It really decentralizes American Christianity.
Yeah.
Just on the first glance at it. So that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that. So moving on to, if you want to, sounds, and probably I should shut up and let you talk more because I don't want us to have to be here an hour, but
No.
So sounds, if you want to tell us,
Yeah,
I want you to talk about your prayer bowl,
I have a Himalayan singing bowl.
excuse me,
A
Himalayan
Himalayan
singing bowl.
singing bowl. And in the bottom, if you can see it, there's the
Yeah.
symbol of a fish and it says faith.
Oh.
And this bowl sits out, and there are times where I begin my prayer with this wonderful, rich sound, and I just let it resonate.
Oh,
And
that's beautiful.
And there are times when I end my prayer time with that as well. Sounds, the sound of running water, a fountain, being outside by a stream. The sounds of music, obviously, the sounds of Gregorian chant, tons of sounds, little finger cymbals, wind chimes, all of those things, the sound of birds in nature, all of those things can be moments for us to stop and realize that we are entering into the presence of God. Some of those things make it easier than others, but if all you've got is a busy street, God can be found there as well. Yeah. If what you have is a city sidewalk, he's the God of the city as well. Sometimes we have to stop and ask, where do I find you in this? Where are you in this, in these sounds? But yet he's there. But the sound of a fire crackling, the sound of the wind in the trees, the sound of rain, all of those things, especially tied into nature, or whatever it is that leads you into worship, whatever style of music it is that brings you into an experience of feeling like you are drawing even closer into God's presence. Those things can be really helpful all the way through your prayer time, or just to get you started, because we all come to our prayer times differently. Some days it's easy and some days it's not. Some days we need help. Yeah.
And also there's a sense of marking off a space, right? So I talked about this in one of my original, one of the earlier posts in this series that was written, it wasn't a conversation, but how I use the sign of the cross.
Right.
And it's not that I don't say, in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. I cross myself as a way to mark off, this is sacred space. This is holy ground. Like that's what I said, I think in the line was like, it feels like a property line to like move into sacred, holy ground. And so I do it at the beginning, at the end. And I got that idea from on the centering prayer app, centering, not center, centering prayer app. They have those gong and bowl noises.
Exactly.
And sounds, noises is a bad word, sounds that you can put a little scripture, you can put some, saint quote, you can have an image of water, an image of stones, whatever it is. So it's all very sensual, sensual.
Yeah, exactly.
And they have those sounds, and I love that marking off, that it felt like between these two things, it's not, doesn't do anything different for us, but to me, signaling to God that I'm ready to receive from you. I'm here. Whatever happens here this is your, I'm in tune. I'm on the same channel with you. Not that he doesn't act other times, not that we're not ready to receive other times, but just, just a quality time kind of intention.
And it's something that we do very naturally in society all the time. If you think about having conversations with someone, it starts with some variation of hello or hey or what's going on. And it ends with some variation of goodbye, whatever that looks like. So this is something that we're very, very comfortable with. We do that, but we don't think to do it when we come to God. And again, you're right, it's not necessary, but there are times when it is the exact right thing for our souls to come in and to say, I'm going to be intentional here. Yeah. I want to be intentional about the time that I spend.
Yeah. And again, it just engages our bodies.
Exactly.
It pulls our physicality into what could be a very mental or internal, I guess, spirit exercise. It pulls the whole, the triune nature of ourselves into the, the Trinity with God.
Yeah, we want to be saying with our bodies what our hearts are already saying to God. We want to be integrated that way. We want it to all be headed in the same direction. Yeah.
That's right. Okay, perfect. So moving into touch, and this one can be so broad because, almost everything we interact with is through our skin, is through our touch senses. But what do you have for us in terms of engaging God through touch?
Okay. Some of the things I have a set of prayer beads that I sometimes will wrap around my wrist. I can wrap them around my wrist, and especially I'm just aware I don't wear them all the time. So when I have them on, they are a different presence, and they sort of remind me, yeah, I'm in prayer with these. There are also times when in centering prayer, it's difficult for me to maybe be in silence. And I sort of mark off my breaths by moving bead to bead. And sometimes that can help just bring me to a place where I'm better focused. Because again, some days it's easy, some days it's not easy. Having other objects. I have a little cube. The corners are rounded. This is a stone that's called aventurine. And it's very...
Can you enunciate or spell or something? What are you saying?
Yeah. Aventurine. Aventurine is the name.
What I thought you said. Yeah. You just had never heard the word. Okay.
Yeah. It's very tactile.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I will just hold it in my hands, and just to feel the presence of that can be very grounding. There are also times when I have my blanket on my chair to wrap myself in my blanket. Yes. And to think, this is God's love. This is God's love for me, surrounding me. Mm. And another part of that is just even a walking meditation. If you live near a church with a labyrinth, even if you don't, taking a walk outside and walking with intentionality and thinking, this is an image of my journey with God as I travel. So what does that feel like?
Specifically, I love to do that barefoot, even if it's on concrete, but also, I mean, there's studies out about energy and the magnetic field of the earth and things like that. But especially if your feet can get in the grass for a minute, or if you live where your feet can get in the sand for a minute, it's true. The grounding aspect of it, of feeling, just more connected to the earth. It's so present. There is no, you're very in it when you're doing that, right?
Yeah, very, very much so. And then also changing postures. Sitting in a chair is great. It's not always the best thing. Lying on your sofa, lying on your floor, lying face up on your floor, face down on your floor.
Intentionally prostrate, right? Or
exactly.
Out.
Yeah, exactly. Changing postures. And all of that has to do with touch, as we notice what our skin is touching. What does that feel like? Taking a picnic blanket and going to lie down on a lawn outside. All of those things you can be aware of touch. There's some people, I have a friend who has a small wooden cross made out of olive wood that has been rubbed to a patina, to have something in your hands, just to be aware, I'm holding this, and it represents, it can represent a burden that you're holding in prayer. It can represent your desire to be present. Just whatever it is that you come that day with, it can represent a lot.
I love that. And one of the other things that I particularly love, I mentioned Frankie sitting right here, I love pet snuggles.
Yes.
That the warmth, like you still get the same sort of oxytocin release with pets that you get with, with skin to skin contact with another, human. And so if I've got one of my nephews, or I'm holding my niece, or, rocking them, or I've got Frankie next to me, not even in my lap or playing with him, but just on me. It feels not just grounding and bringing me into the present, but I feel loved. I feel like belonging. I feel safe. Those kinds of things that are then very easy to access that feeling with God.
Yeah. I mean, again, when you think about pets, these are things that are not necessary for life, except for Frankie, of course.
He is necessary.
Hi, buddy. Hi, buddy. But when we think about pets, you don't have to have pets.
Right. Just a
but
great.
Here is the love of a God who knows how we would respond to them, who knows what it means for us to have those snuggles, to be enriched by those snuggles. And it brings another facet of who God is to us when we stop to think, this little dog exists because God deemed that the world would be better with him in it for you. And so here, and here he is. So those things
it's
are
so
precious.
beautiful, especially in singleness, whether you have had a relationship and are widowed or divorced or have been extendedly single. There can be times when you go a long time without touch from another human being. And especially like during COVID and when we were on lockdown, it was such a drought of it, and it was so noticed. And that's when I got CJ. I had a kitten for a while. I was allergic, guys, but it's CJ for a little while, and ended up, with Frankie, and there is something incredibly divine, I think, about first of all, that just the naked and unashamedness of a pet. It's just unconditional. They're present. They forgive you so quickly. They, you step on them and they're just like, what? I love you. And all that. But one of that I love that idea of recognizing like their existence. And and he's not even in the he's not in the food chain. He doesn't serve the purpose of like feeding another animal. He just is a domestic companion out of the grace of God. So that's great.
Exactly. Yeah.
In terms of, so taste is weird, I think. It can be, I guess. But how would you connect with God through taste?
I think anything that you think about that really resonates with you, and of course that's different for everybody, but coffee, chocolate. It's Christmas time. I'm like all things, I'm the queen of peppermint. Yes. So to have a peppermint candy, put it in my mouth at the beginning of prayer and just let it permeate all of my taste, and think about, okay, God permeates my world the same way this is permeating my taste. The smell and the aroma of fresh baked bread, the things that make you think of places where you had communion that ministered to your soul. And for each of us, that's different. For some of us, that was family meals. For other people, that wasn't the case. It was found with friends, or it was found in travel and visiting a place that was new and experiencing a new experience. So whatever it is that make it, those things that make you stop and say, this is rich. This is rich. And there's something about it. It not just feeds my physical body, but there's something about it that touches my soul.
Exactly. So, I think about that a lot of time with Italian food, or with like something that's got, creamy and carbs and flavors and herbs but things I think particularly with like natural fruit, that you can just bite into, that doesn't even require preparation sometimes. I think about it with coffee, certainly with the Eucharist. The idea that we can physically taste forgiveness, physically taste the gospel, chew it and swallow, like just embody, truly like take it in, digest it. Those are some of the big ones, but like you said, I mean, coffee, wine outside of the Eucharist. But it's hard to, especially as a Christian who's grown up with all these stories, it's hard to eat bread or drink wine, or certainly do them together, even in just a dinner setting, and not somewhere have in your mind a sense of community, even a sense of people have been doing this since Passover, right? Or since before that. So it grounds you, and then it also, like, it brings you to the present and brings you to connection with, the past, the present, and the future.
Yeah.
Um,
Definitely.
and then and then smell. So what are some ways that you engage God through your sense of smell?
Well, sometimes the candles that I have a scent attached to them. Sometimes they don't. I have certain essential oils that I really like the smell of. I have a little roller ball. Sometimes I'll put it on my wrist.
Hmm.
I will smell that. I will come
Mhm.
into that and notice that. Again, parts of being nature. If you have fresh flowers in your house, if that's something that on occasion you have in your house and you can just stop and enjoy that. We've also talked about the odor of baking bread and what that symbolizes. Even if you didn't bake it and you just put it in your toaster and warmed it up, there's something to be said for that.
I also notice when I walk into my mom's house, there's time, like if she's just made breakfast and there's coffee, it smells like my grandma's.
Exactly.
So I'll walk in and I'm like transported into a sense of family and ancestry and memory and just delight, and that stirs my affections for God, for my family, and that olfactory sense of connection, memory, right?
Yeah, exactly. My mother dusted with lemon pledge, and to this day, I cannot smell lemon pledge without being taken right back to a place of family.
Yeah.
So a favorite fragrance. Again, you talked about fruit, the smell of citrus when you cut citrus. All of those things are available to us, and sometimes it's just a matter of us saying, I want to add that to my prayer experience. I want to engage
Incense,
God.
I think, would be another,
Incense,
and incense is
absolutely.
used in churches, even during services, but you're right. It's not that those things replace, or that, lighting a candle or lighting incense or diffusing an essential oil becomes prayer.
Right.
Supplements it, or it brings you into focus, or it incorporates your body. One of my favorite ones, I'm not being an MLM right now, I'm not trying to sell a product, but it's called Northern Lights Black Spruce. Northern Lights Black Spruce. It smells, I've never been to Alaska. I imagine it smells like an Alaskan forest.
Alaska in a bottle.
And so there's times that even in the summer, I'll turn the AC way down because I'm in an apartment and I have very small square footage, so I can do that. And I'll diffuse this, and with my eyes closed, imagine like a cool breeze blowing through some sort of Alaskan forest or Icelandic forest, somewhere up in the north. And it's that thing again of like, my senses have been overwhelmed to the point that I'm grateful. My senses have been engaged to the point that then it doesn't terminate just on enjoyment, but then it rolls into worship.
Exactly. You start with, this is a wonderful fragrance. Who is the God that created fragrance? Where did this fragrance come from? Where's the imagination of God that created this fragrance and thought that our world would be enhanced by having this fragrance? And so from there, again, you grow. Your view of God is just getting bigger. It's getting bigger.
Do you guys see what I mean when I say this is in her bones? Like a Himalayan singing bowl and an avertine, is that what you call it? And you have all of these, these things at the ready. And I, that's why I knew you would be perfect for this conversation. You did mention positioning and posture. And one other thing I wanted to, we do a lot of, we talk about body scanning, you and I do.
Yeah.
And I wanted to see if you could talk about maybe body scanning and blessing. So sometimes in our yoga, like you'll speak a blessing over me, or I think we've talked about in the past, like as I'm in a specific position, to bless my feet and ankles and knees and my shoulders and my neck, and for the things that they do to serve me every day. So if you would talk about that just a smidge, and then maybe lead us in a practice or two before we sign off. Okay.
Yeah. I think a lot of times, again, our formative practices of prayer, sometimes we're limited. Maybe we learned it all in a corporate setting in church, And so prayer became synonymous with sitting with your head bowed and your eyes closed.
Mhm.
And I'm not saying that there is anything wrong with that at all, but there's certainly a lot more ways of positioning our body to encounter God in prayer that don't include that. So becoming aware of what is it that I'm bringing, what is in my heart today, and making sure that I'm taking the time to incorporate my body posture that best speaks to what is going on in my heart.
That's integrated with those, with that. Okay.
Exactly. So there are times when we can come in, and again, when we talk about beginning and ending, we can come in. Maybe the sign of the cross is not something that's meaningful to someone, but maybe bowing is the right thing. Maybe to just take a moment and pause and bow can be the right thing. Maybe having hands at prayer posture right in front of your heart. Maybe that's meaningful. Maybe having open hands. Sometimes palms up, open hands can mean, I want to release this to you, God. And it can also mean, I'm ready to receive whatever you have for me.
Yeah.
Palms down can be, I want to put this away from me. I want to release it to you. I want to let go of this, whatever it is that's occupying my brain space right now. I want to let go of that. So even just how we hold our arms, it can feel completely different to pray the same thing when you're sitting up and your eyes are raised up, as opposed to having your head down. Or if you're standing instead of sitting, or if you're lying flat instead of standing. All of those things can change. And if you do yoga at all, or even if you're aware of yoga, there are some great yoga postures. Child's pose. There's a pose called legs up the wall, where your back is on the floor and your legs are up against a wall. That can be very restful poses, and that can also be very conducive towards being with God in a different way, that can open up how you communicate with God in that. When you take yourself out of what you think is the sometimes right way to do it, or your own normative way to do it, and expand that. You are creating
exactly. That's what we're talking about, is that this isn't replacing necessarily what does feel authentic and legitimate, not necessarily legitimate, but authentic and integrated with who you are. If you're not somebody who, if it would feel distracting, for example, for you to pray in child's pose, or if it would feel distracting to have incense going, it gives you a headache or whatever, don't do this, because it's performative. That's the area of physicality that I think is most trapping, I guess, is that we can start to think that the performative aspects of it, and God help my generation, the pictures we take of it to post on social media. I'm guilty of it too. A lot of times when I light my prayer candle, I'll post a picture and a caption of what I'm praying for that night. And it comes from a place that feels, genuine. But if I'm not careful, I can get the candle lit, the picture posted, the caption written, and then I'm like, okay, I did that. I don't do the prayer. And so it's not a performative thing. If any of these things, though, do enhance either your focus during something like centering prayer, silence, breath prayer, where you're not actually on a train of thought, where you're trying to not be, or whether they help you to bring, I was praying the other night, Jenny, I don't think I told you this. I was laying in bed and just I was aware of my body as an aunt for my nephews, and how, whenever one of them is hurt and I'm holding them, they just sort of bury themselves in my chest and stuff. And I prayed, God, thank you for making me a woman. It was the first time I've ever prayed that. I felt it, certainly, but it was the first time I'd put words to that. God, thank you for making me a woman. And that came from an awareness of my feminine body that is different than what maybe their uncles have, or their body, my dad or whatever. But a body that is soft and nurturing and home, that, and I would know my mother's embrace out of a billion of them, you know, and you would too. It's so our bodies, our physicality, our embodied faith practices are simply meant to spur us on, right? To
Exactly.
help us engage, to get our focus there, to find a new entry point. Sometimes people like, they can't, acts or cats or whatever the acronym is, like confession, adoration, thanksgiving, and supplication or whatever. Some people are like, oh, the formative ways we learned feel disingenuous to them now. But a stone in their hand, a candle lit, and 30 seconds of a breath prayer is doable. It's digestible. It's something we can incorporate without a whole lot more fanfare than just what's in our home already, the things that are already speaking to us.
Exactly. Yeah. We are on journey with God, and journey means you go from one place to another place. So we shouldn't expect that the same practices that fed our souls at the beginning in the same way will always do that. The same form is not always going to be as life-giving as maybe it once was. There's sort of a spiral effect where we will probably come through and go through different seasons, and we should expect that. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with us. It means that we are growing, we are changing, and we're paying attention to what God is doing. And also, as we've talked about senses, these are not things, don't try and engage all your senses on the same day.
Thank you for saying that.
That's pretty overwhelming. Maybe you want to take one prayer time in a week and pick one sense and think, okay, I'm going to try this and I'm going to see what it feels like. Yes. And try it maybe 3 times in 1 week and see if it's meaningful. If it's not meaningful, set it aside, move on to something else. You will find what resonates with your soul, and that's what counts. And if yours is different from everybody else's in the world, well, you are different than everybody else in the world, so that shouldn't be a surprise at all.
And that specific thing, then, that's the thing that is your offering to God. That is the thing that is, not that God's asking for offering, but that is your thing. That's how you've been wired. It's what feels most home or safe or authentic to you. And something for me, I believe there's a reason for that. There's a reason, because God wired you that way. And so when you tap into it and then you start engaging a part of yourself that God designed you to engage and to use as an entry point for relationship with God, then I just get this picture of like delight on God's face, of this is sort of the picture I get, just this, home and intimate and relational.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Where we have a chance to see a whole different part of God, a new part of God that we hadn't seen before.
Yeah. Okay, so thank you so much, Jenny. If you would lead us right quick, maybe in just a short example of how you might engage either body scanning or breath prayer or something like that.
Sure. Yeah, I invite you to sit and get comfortable in your chair. Close your eyes. I'm going to start with just a little bit of sound. Take a deep breath in. And just have a nice, long, slow exhale. And another breath like that. And on your third breath, think of a phrase that is meaningful. Maybe be still and know. Just a couple of words on your inhale, a couple of words on your exhale that are meaningful to you. And now try shrugging your shoulders way up by your ears tight. Notice how that feels. Notice how it feels to be constrained, and now release all that. Take a moment to stop and say, is there anything in my soul that feels constrained like that? So anything that's on my heart, anything on my mind that feels just like my shoulders all bunched up. And if you identify something, bring your hands together before the Lord as if you're holding an object. You're holding an object right at heart posture. And think about holding that concern before God. And then in a gesture of surrender, either open your palms to release it to God, or turn your palms over so that it falls out of your hands and falls into the everlasting arms underneath you. Notice how that feels. Just notice how it feels to sit in his presence and have that released. Put both hands on your lower stomach and notice breathing into that space. Think of God as the breath of life. How does it feel to breathe in as deeply as you can? And then on the exhale, release that thing back to him. Raise your head up so that if your eyes were open, you would be able to see the ceiling. And notice how it feels to be in God's presence with your head lifted towards the sky. And now lower it to look down to your lap. How does that change your heart movement? How does that change how you feel before God, how you relate to God? How would you describe that? And from this place, what is your desire? What is your desire for this time with God? As you think of that desire, wrap your arms around yourself, giving yourself a hug. And as you sit with that desire that has come to mind for this time, this quiet moment, just even this brief moment, feel the hug of God around you as you bring this into his presence with everything that you are. And now unfold your arms gently and stretch them out to the side. Palms up, palms open. And end your time with whatever sentence resonates with what's in your heart. To say to God, this is who I am before you in this moment. This is how I come. Amen.
Amen. Oh, I feel very in my body. Like I don't want to keep talking. That was beautiful. Thank you so much for leading us in that and for sharing your the objects around your home and the practices personal to you, your wisdom, just your journey of like you said, like the journey is going from destination to destination, and this contemplative sort of movement of your journey that I don't expect you will move all the way out of at any point.
Oh, nice. I hope not. Yeah.
But you're in it, and in a way that, like I said, it just comes off you. It like it's in your bones, and you radiate a stillness and a posture of confident, like a holy confidence before the Lord, that enables, there were times that even doing this before God felt incredibly exposing. I remember I had a therapist one time suggest, like, what if you laid on the floor completely naked in prayer? and
Wow.
everything in me like went like this.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't in a space with God where I felt like I wanted to be seen like that. And so you sort of, if there's a way to say, you radiate the opposite of that. Your holy confidence before God and stillness of spirit has really just blessed, I think, this time and this space, and certainly my life. I think you know that. And so thank you again for your time. I've kept you much longer than I said I would, and I
Right, all right.
appreciate it. And please come back if you want to. Jenny, are you on socials or not? People, if they wanted to find you, you don't have
No,
like
not really.
public sort of space. Okay.
Not really.
So instead, where I'll encourage you is, if you're interested in this kind of thing, look up spiritual directors in your area or in your faith tradition that I feel like could lead you well in a process like this. And I think that would be, and then if you have any questions specifically for Jenny, feel free to go to the contact page on the blog and reach out to me, and I'm sure I could pass it along to her as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So thank you so much, Jenny. I hope you'll come back, and
Thank you, my friend.
see you again soon. All right.
Yeah, you bet.